Hello, boys and girls. It's Auntie Janet checking in with you for week number 4 of our story, Rainbow Garden, Elaine's Search for Joy. If you remember with me, I'm pretty sure this is where I left you at the end of our chapter last week. This was Elaine and Janet sitting side by side in their bedroom the evening after Elaine came to the place where she asked Jesus to be her Savior, and she became a child of God. And Janet and her were sitting there and became friends that day and started to get to know each other better. Well, in the week following this special day, the children had a whole week of school vacation. So no homework, no school studies, just fun times. And because they had all this time together, Elaine decided that she was going to share her secret of her special garden with Peter and Janet and the other kids. She told them about the garden she had found and showed it to them. And they said, "Oh, Elaine, that's Philippa's house. We know about that." And they decided to make a plan together. Peter, Janet, Elaine, and some of the little children, the little family members, as well as Mr. Owen, decided that Philippa would be coming home soon from her medical appointments in the city. And the garden was such a mess with so many weeds. Why didn't they work together and get it looking so nice so that it would be ready to welcome Philippa home when she came home? At first, Elaine thought, "Oh, this was my own special place." But you know what? As she started to share the space with Peter and Janet, she realized it was a lot more fun to take friends with her. As they went to the garden, she showed Peter and Janet the bird's nest with the 2 little eggs in it, and they all enjoyed listening to the birds sing. And Elaine said to the Peter and Janet, "Doesn't it sound like they're saying fullness of joy, fullness of joy?" They worked hard, weeded the garden, got it looking really nice, and Mr. Owen even fixed the broken window from when the man had broken into the house and stolen things. As Elaine worked, her heart was full of joy. She was so thankful that now she could be friends with Peter and Janet. And she looked over in through the window that Mr. Owen fixed, and there was the shell. Remember the shell she had stolen? Well, she and Mr. Owen had put it back in the house and left it where it was supposed to be. That week, they didn't spend the whole week doing gardening work. Instead, they had some fun adventures. Peter and Janet showed Elaine around and took her to the seashore where they found some interesting shells, and they shared their collection together. And Peter actually apologized to Elaine for him being mean to her before, and they became good friends. Well, at the end of the week, they knew that Philippa and her mom would be coming home at any time. So on the Friday afternoon, all the Owen children, except baby Lucy, went with Mr. Owen up to Philippa's house, and each child had a little gift to welcome Philippa home with. Mr. Owen had a key to the house so that they could go inside. Peter had actually built a little cage with some wood and some wire, and it was a hutch for a little rabbit. The family bought a rabbit and put it outside on the garden and put the rabbit in the hutch so that when Philippa came home, she had a new pet. Then Janet and Elaine and some of the other children had baked cookies and made fudge, and Mr. Owen opened the house, and they took the presents in and set them on the kitchen table with welcome home cards for Philippa. Little Frances wanted to have a special gift for Philippa. She took her favorite stuffed toy elephant and took it up and put her little elephant right on Philippa's bed to welcome her home, and she patted his head and said goodbye. The kids thought it was so special that Frances was willing to share her favorite toy. Well, once everything was together and all the gifts left sitting there waiting for Philippa and their mom, Mr. Owen locked the house again, and it was time for them to go home. It was getting close to supper time, and Elaine said to Mr. Owen, "Please, can I stay here just for a few minutes by myself? There's one little patch of weeding I would like to do and just spend some time here myself." Mr. Owen said it was fine. He knew how important it was to Elaine to have some space to herself in the garden. So everybody left and went home, and Elaine sat there in the garden. She looked around and saw how wonderful it looked now that everything was weeded in the new rabbit hutch, and All the flowers were there, and she listened to the birds, and she got daydreaming and said, oh, I better finish this weeding before it's time for supper. And she just reached down to start pulling up some weeds when she heard a noise. Was it that man coming back again? No, it wasn't somebody walking. It was the sound of a car. A car. Who could be coming, Elaine thought. When she looked up, she peeked her head around the corner of the house, and there, sure enough, was a car pulled up by the front gate of Philippa's house. Elaine pulled back, peeked her head again, and looked. And who was coming out of a car but a lady? And a lady was helping a little girl get out of the car. Elaine thought, it must be Philippa. That's it. Because when she looked, Philippa had large braces, metal braces on her legs, and she had to walk with crutches. She looked kind of frail and sick. And Elaine thought, oh, that must be Philippa. But instead of running out to join her and go say hello to her, Elaine got scared. Philippa and her mom don't know who I am. They're going to wonder what I'm doing in their garden. Oh no, I'm going to be caught and they're going to be so angry at me. So instead of going to greet them, Elaine hugged her way in close to the wall and held herself against the wall and thought, I sure hope they don't see me, and when they go around the house or into the house, I'll take off before they see me. Well, as Philippa and her mom slowly walked up the path, Elaine could hear them talking, and Philippa was like, Mom, look at our garden. I thought it was going to be so full of weeds and it's so beautiful, Mom. What happened? It looks like the fairies were here and worked in our garden. Her mom smiled. I don't think it was fairies, Philippa. I'm pretty sure Mr. Owen and the children and Mrs. Owen probably worked hard and made this so beautiful for us. They're such kind neighbors. And then as they came up the path, Philippa noticed over in the grass the little wooden hutch. Mom, that wasn't there when we left. What's that? What is that? And though she couldn't walk very fast, Philippa started to walk slowly to the rabbit hutch. And Elaine thought, oh no, she's coming my way. And before she knew it, Philippa came around the corner, and there they were looking at each other, scared each other half to death. Philippa said, who are you? And Elaine was so shocked, she didn't know what to say. She said, I'm Elaine. Mr. Owen said I could be here. I'm doing gardening. I live with the Owens. Please don't be angry. She stopped. Philippa's mom came around the corner and she started to laugh. Oh, you are Elaine. We've heard so much about you. You live with the Owens. Mr. Owen wrote us a letter and told us that you were the one who met the man who was the burglar into our house. And they've told us all sorts of things about you. So nice to meet you, Elaine. So nice. Oh, you're not angry that I'm in your garden? No, we're not angry. Come, let's get to know you better. And Elaine took Philippa over. She showed her the rabbit hutch. See, she said, this is from Peter. He built it himself. And this rabbit, it's a new pet for you. Philippa was so excited. The rabbit is so cute, Mom. I'm excited. This will be my pet. And then they went in the house and Elaine showed them the cookies and the fudge that they had brought. And she even told them about little Frances giving Philippa her favorite stuffed toy on her bed. Philippa was so thankful that even a couple of little tears came in her eyes as she knew Frances had sacrificed to give away her favorite toy for her. Well, Elaine sat and chatted for a while, but then she said, supper time is coming soon. I must get home. The Owens will look for us. But she already felt that she had a friend in Philippa. And Philippa said, you can come back anytime. Mom, isn't it okay? Yes, you can come back and let's be friends. Elaine left Philippa's house. Her heart was full of joy. She practically skipped the whole way home. And she thought, oh, that garden, that I was so ashamed to go back in there after I had stolen things. Now I don't have to be afraid. It's Philippa's garden, and I think I have a new friend, and I have Jesus as my Savior, and in His presence there's fullness of joy, and life is good. She hurried home. She got home in time for supper, and as they were eating supper, she told the Owens about meeting Philippa and her mom. And she said, "Oh, I think I have a brand new friend." Mrs. Owen smiled warmly at Elaine. After supper, as they always did, the Owens had family worship time. And Elaine had grown to love this time now. She had gotten quite good at using an old Bible that the Owens had given her to be able to find verses in the Bible. And she was getting pretty good at finding the verses. And that particular night, she grabbed the old Bible and she said to Mr. Owen, "I can find verses. I'm getting really good at this. I can find verses in the Bible now." And Mr. Owen smiled. "I know you are getting good, Elaine, but this old Bible won't work anymore." Elaine thought it was kind of funny. And then Mr. Owen got up. He left the room and came back a couple of minutes later. And in his hand, there was a package. And in the package, he handed the package to Elaine. And he said, "This is for you, Elaine. If you're becoming such an expert at finding verses in the Bible, then you definitely need this." "What could it be?" said Elaine. She tore off the wrapping, and there inside was a beautiful new Bible. On the front of the Bible, down at the bottom here, it said Elaine Nelson. Her own name was engraved on the Bible. And when she opened the front cover, on the page where you're supposed to write your name and a special message, it had her special verse. "Thou wilt show me the path of life. In thy presence is fullness of joy," from Psalm chapter 16. Elaine thanked Mr. Owen over and over for buying her a new Bible, and she promised she would learn to find verses and to read the Bible and get to know it better. And she made herself a promise that she was going to become a best friend to Philippa, and she was going to tell Philippa about Jesus. And she kept her word. As the summer holidays came, she went to visit Philippa every day. And every day she would take her special Bible and she would tell Philippa about the stories she learned at family worship the night before. And one day, late that summer, Philippa said to Elaine, "Elaine, I know that I need to ask Jesus to be my Savior." And so one late afternoon, as the sun was going down, Philippa sat there and prayed and asked Jesus to become her Savior and asked him to forgive her of her sin, and she became a child of God. Elaine was so excited. "Now you know about fullness of joy too, Philippa. This is wonderful." Well, as I said to you, they played together and got to know each other very well all through the summer. And the summer was coming to the close, and in just 2 weeks' time, school was going to start again. And Mr. and Mrs. Owen had a special surprise for all the Owen kids and Elaine. They had been talking about it all summer. They were going to go on a family camping trip. Take a large tent and their sleeping bags, and they were going to cook outside on a cooking fire, and they were going to go away for 1 week on an adventure camping before school started again. Well, Peter, Janet, and Elaine knew about this trip. It was a surprise at the beginning of the summer, but they had been told, and they had been saving some of their money. And they got permission from Mrs. Owen one day to take their money into town and buy something special to go on their camping trip. So Peter, Janet, and Elaine left home with their money safely in their pockets and walked to town. Peter had a plan. He wanted to buy himself a compass and a special map because he was going to find out all sorts of cool information about the campsite, and he was going to use his compass to tell them which direction to go when they went on family hikes. And Janet and Elaine had other things that they wanted to buy. So they spent the afternoon purchasing some things out of their own money at the different stores. But each of the 3 kids made a plan. They saved enough money left over so at the end of the afternoon, before they went home, they could stop by the ice cream stand. And they had enough money to buy an ice cream cone that had 2 scoops of ice cream on top, a double-decker ice cream. As they walked to the ice cream stand, Peter licked his lips. "I can just taste my favorite flavor." "What's your favorite flavor, Peter?" "I love pineapple ice cream." "Ugh," said Elaine, "chocolate's the best." "No, pineapple's the best." Well, they got to the ice cream stand, they gave their last money, and each one of them got a double-decker ice cream cone. They were standing there by the stand with their backs against the wall, enjoying their ice cream cone, when suddenly Elaine jumped. She took her arm and she smacked Peter like that and hit his arm that had the ice cream cone in it, and plop, Peter's ice cream cone with the double-decker pineapple favorite ice cream went right on the ground. "Elaine, what are you doing?" he said. And Elaine said, "Stop, stop, Peter, look, look, look." He's like, why is she so excited? What's she talking about? "Peter, look." And he watched where Elaine was pointing. And there across, it's him, it's him, it's him. There across the street was the man, the burglar who had met Elaine in the garden. "Peter, it's him, it's him." And Elaine took her ice cream cone and she shoved it in Peter's hand and she said, "I don't want him to see me. If he sees me, I'm in trouble. Here, you hold my ice cream and I'm going to hide in the doorway back here." But before she could get in the doorway, the man turned his head, looked, and his eye caught Elaine's eye. Right away, Elaine knew that he recognized her. Oh, no, he sees me. What's he going to do? Is he going to come after me? What's he going to do? But instead of coming after Elaine, he was standing at a red light waiting to cross the road to walk across. As soon as he saw Elaine and Peter and Janet looking at him, the man took off running. He ran right out into the traffic, even though it was a stop sign not to walk across. Cars screeched and honked their horns, hooted their horns, and screeched their brakes not to hit him, and he ran quickly across, and Peter said, "Let's go after him." And Elaine and Janet quickly followed Peter. They took off running, and he went to go right out into the street to follow the guy, when suddenly the traffic policeman stopped Peter and said, "Stop, young man." Peter stopped up short. "But sir, what do you think you're doing, young man? Can't you see I've stopped? Traffic has not stopped. You can't run out in the middle of traffic." "But officer, that man, did you see that man? He's a burglar. Catch him, we must catch him." The officer looked, he saw the man running away. And he said to Peter, "I'm sorry, young man. Even if that man, he really is a burglar and he really stole or robbed the biggest bank on earth, there's nothing I can do about it." "What?" said Peter. "No, young man, my job is to direct traffic. I have to stay here to keep people who are walkers, pedestrians safe. I cannot leave my post." "What?" said Peter. "You're letting a bad guy, a guy who is a burglar, you're letting him get away. We've got to follow him." "No, young man, stop." Peter stopped. Elaine and Janet stopped. What are they going to do? Well, when the traffic lights changed, the officer was able to come over to the sidewalk and talk to them. "Listen, young man, I'm sorry. I would love to help you, but the only thing I can advise you to do is go to the police station and give a report." "Yes, sir," said Peter, and he walked away slowly. Elaine and Janet said, "There's no point in going to the police station. That guy has run away now. He knows we saw him. He's going to go into hiding and we'll never find him. I wish we could have caught him and that police officer would have helped us. It's no use. He's going to get away for breaking into Philippa's house and no one will even have justice served." Well, Elaine told Peter that he could eat her ice cream cone since she ruined his. And the three kids started walking back home. And they decided to go with the next best plan. "I tell you what, we'll go home and tell Mr. Owen about that we found the man and let him see if he wants to go to the police station and make a report. We've got to catch that guy. He's the guy who did the evil things and broke into Philippa's house, and we must find him and bring him to justice." That's where I'm going to leave the story today. There is one more chapter left. Will they catch the man again? Will they find him? What's his story? And what's going to happen when they go on their family camping trip next week? I'm going to tell you, there's a big adventure still to come. And we'll come back next week and learn more about Elaine's search for joy. See you later.